Everything from clothing to household items are getting more expensive each day. American Giant is about keeping things simple and close to home. They aren't affected by tariffs because their products never leave the U.S. Support American-made tariff-free clothing with American Giant with American Giant. Get 20% off your first order when you use promo code STAPLE20 at american-giant.com. That's 20% off when you use code STAPLE20 at american-giant.com.
If your job at a healthcare facility includes disinfecting against viruses, you know prevention is the best medicine. And maintaining healthy spaces starts with a healthy cleaning routine. Grainger's world-class supply chain helps ensure you have the quality products you need when you need them. From disinfectants and cleaning supplies to personal protective equipment, so you can help deliver a clean bill of health. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball. This is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
A warmer from below. Welcome to lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the Visa Family Podcast. We've got an excellent podcast for you. Joining me in segment number 2, we're going to have Matt Josephs, aka Mid-Major Matterboard. He does such a tremendous job taking a look at this great game that we all know and love of baseball. We're going to be chatting with him about what he's all been noticing out there in the player prop market. We're also going to be diving in and talking about with him some of the teams that are sort of ascending/declining, and then we're going to be taking a look at the games that we've got on this Sunday. In the final segment, gonna get you guys picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this baseball Sunday, as we do touch them all. If you have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you have one of two ways we offer those in. First one is my Twitter/X timeline at gunit_81. Keep in mind, letters the name does not matter, so as per usual, please do send these into the timeline. And the other way is find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it is very much appreciated. From there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via that 5-star review. While we did not get in any Twitter/X questions today, everything is powered by Edge Boost. Edge Boost is making sure that bettors are able to access their funds whenever and wherever they want. When you go to edgeboost.bet, type in that promo code of Greg, G-R-E-G. That'll get you a $1 for $1 match on your first deposit up to $25. And let's take a look back at everything that we saw in baseball on Saturday. Try to find some trends and try to get to know these teams a little bit better.
Games from yesterday is Greg buzzing about. Here is the rowdy recap.
Now, I do have to do the show cashing out on Visa, the Sports Betting Network, so some of the West Coast games I might not be able to polish up, but there were a few West Coast games from Friday that I wasn't able to get to that we will get to here. The Chicago White Sox did get the job done on Friday against the Colorado Rockies by a count of 3-2. Not sure how the Saturday game went, but for the White Sox, they went 1 of 10 with men in scoring position, but for Adrian, don't call him Doogie Howser, 2 unearned runs given up in 8 innings. There was a bad fielding error out there by Josh Rojas, but from there you had Grant Taylor close it out, and for Colorado, you actually had Antonio Senzatello give a halfway decent start, 3 runs allowed in 5 2/3 innings, gives up a home run to Edgar Quiero, his first home run of the campaign. From there, Juan Mejia and out of the bullpen, and Tyler Kinley and Zach Ogdos combined for 3 scoreless innings. You saw the Dodgers lose 18-1 on the 4th of July. As for the Houston Astros, just an overall home run parade. Jose Altuve, 14th and 15th home runs of the campaign. Christian Walker's 11th home run of the season. Victor Caratini's 8th home run of the season. Isaac Paredes, his 18th. As for Ben Casparis, the starter, gave up 6 runs in 3 innings, but somehow, someway, you had Noah Davis in this game have his ERA shoot up to a 19.50. He got 4 outs and he gave up 10 runs, all of which were earned. Jack Dreyer, a run given up in 1 2/3 innings. Anthony Banda gave up a run in 2 innings, and somehow, someway, Miguel Rojas had the best showing out of anyone. He allowed no runs in his inning work, and you did have Will Smith get jiggy with it off of Lance McCullers Jr., his 12th home run of the campaign. For McCullers, gives up a run in his 6 innings of work, and then Jason Alexander, a 3-inning save. And for the Kansas City Royals, we saw them get the job done on Friday, but not so much on Saturday. On Friday, a nice 9-3 win with Chris Bubich, giving up 3 runs in 7 innings, including a home run, going deep for Arizona, and Eugenio Suarez, his 28th home run of the campaign. From there, Daniel Lynch and Sammy Long both on the scoreless inning, and Vinny Pasquantino did go deep twice off of Eduardo Rodriguez, his 13th and 14th home runs of the season, and Rodriguez gave it up to Mark Canha. Yes, he can get his first home run of the season, as for Rodriguez, 9 runs, 8 of which were earned, give it up in 4 1/3 innings. From there, you had some good relief pitching. Ryan Thompson, Jalen Beeks, and Jake Woodford all give you a scoreless inning. John Curtis with 2 S's, 5 outs out of the bullpen, scoreless. And Athletics took it to the San Francisco Giants, this by a count of 11-2. Over is hitting like wildfire out there in Sacramento's J.P. Sears, 6 scoreless innings, and then you did have 2 runs given up in 3 innings by Jack Perkins. He did give up a home run in this one. As for the Giants, it was Brett Wisely who wisely got his first home run of the season, but you also had for the San Francisco Giants, Justin Verlander give up 6 runs in 3 innings, and then Mason Black gives up a pair of bombs, 5 runs, 3 of which were in 4 innings, as he was taken deep by Nick Kurtz, his 13th home run of the season. Then how about this man coming on? Denzel Clark, his 3rd home run of the campaign. From there for the Giants, you did have Ryan Walker lend a scoreless inning, and then turning forward to Saturday, the Arizona Diamondbacks, they were able to get revenge for the Friday loss, this by a count of 7-1. As for the Royals, averaging about 3.3 runs per game. That is dead last out there in all of baseball. And for this Kansas City Royals team, they've been a very good under team all season long as well, especially when they've been at home. But even on the road, they've still been able to get the job done there. 19 overs, 27 unders, and a push. As for Kansas City, Michael Wacha be the dying Pac-Man, boys. Michael Wacha. 4 runs allowed in 4 innings. John Schreiber, Daniel Lynch both led a scoreless inning. Taylor Clark gives up a run in an inning, and Sammy Long 2 runs allowed in his inning, including a home run. Going deep for the Arizona Diamondbacks, Randall Grichuk, his 5th home run of the campaign. Ryan Nelson with tremendous 7 scoreless innings. Kevin Ginkel along with Shelby Miller, they both led a scoreless inning. The Mets absolutely take it to the New York Yankees, 12-6 the final. Carlos Rodon absolutely lit up in this game. 7 runs, 6 of which weren't given up in his 5 innings, including a grand slam to Brandon Nimmo, his 18th home run of the campaign. And then Pete Alonso off of him got his 19th home run of the season. Then Pete Alonso gets his 20th home run of the season, as Javion Sandridge in his MLB debut gives on up to him 2 runs allowed in 2/3 of an inning. Scott Effers gives up 2 runs in his inning of work. And JT Brubaker, 1 1/3 innings, he allowed a run. Did have a trio of home runs for the Yankees, as well as you had Frankie Montas give up a pair. Austin Wells hits a Wells for his 12th home run of the season. Jazz Chisholm his 15th. And then Anthony Volpe off of Dickie Lovelady, his 10th home run of the season. Lovelady gives up a run in an inning, and one Frankie Montas gives up 4 runs in 5 2/3 innings, but enough to get the win. Ryan Stanek gives up a run in an inning. Chris Stavinsky and out of the bullpen, and Edwin Diaz, he was able to end a scoreless inning as well. For the Milwaukee Brewers, they fall to the Miami Marlins, this by a count of 4-2, as Chad Patrick, relatively solid start, 2 runs allowed over the course of 5 innings, did give one up to Kyle Stowers, 16th home run of the season, and Cal Quantrill was not long for this game, 2 runs allowed in 3 2/3 innings. Bullpen from there was masterful. Calvin Fauché, Ronnie Enriquez, Lake Bakar all ended scoreless inning. You had Tyler Phillips give you a pair of outs out of the bullpen scoreless, and Josh Simpson was able to give you 5 outs out of the bullpen scoreless as well. For the Boston Red Sox, back-to-back big-time wins over the Washington Nationals. 10-3 the final. As for Boston, all of a sudden they have been able to find it with regards to their offenses. This bunch has now put up 5+ runs in 3 out of their first 4 games in the month of July. And you take a look at this team, they've been able to put up north of 10 runs now in 3 out of their last 8 games. And for Boston, they had Ceddanne Rafael go deep off of Mitchell Parker, his 10th home run of the season for Parker. 9 runs, 4 of which were earned, given up in 6 innings, was hurt by a trio of errors, so one of them was his own. Ryan Lotus and Jackson Rutledge both landed scoreless inning, and Eduardo Salazar gives up an unearned run in his inning of work, and Walker Buehler looked much better in this game. 3 runs, 2 of which were earned, given up in 5 innings. Greg Weisert, Orde Alcala both landed scoreless inning, and Brennan Bernardino, 2 scoreless innings. For the Angels, they cover the run line, but not able to get the job done against Toronto. 4-3. This game goes to 11 innings, as Jack Kachanowicz gives up 3 runs over the course of 5 1/3 innings, including a home run to George Springer, 16th home run of the campaign. From there, the bullpen was solid. Ryan Zefrian gives up the unearned run in the 11th inning, as Edison Barger, an RBI single, ends it, but Connor Brogdon, pair of outside the bullpen scoreless. Jose Fermin, Reed Detmers, Kenley Jansen all lend a scoreless inning, and for Toronto, Mad Max Fury Road Scherzer gives up 2 runs in 4 innings. Nick Sandlin a scoreless inning, Braden Fisher 2 scoreless innings, and then he had some super duper long relief from Lazaro Estrada in his MLB debut, gives up 1 run over the course of 4 innings. For the St. Louis Cardinals, they absolutely gong show the Chicago Cubs, this by a count of 8-6, as the Cubs 46 overs, 36 unders, and 7 pushes, one of your top over teams in all baseball. Ironically enough, the Blue Jays are your top over team, 49 overs, 37 unders, and 3 pushes. They did not go over on Saturday, but the Cubs did, as For the St. Louis Cardinals, trio of bombs, Alec Burleson off of Brad Keller, 11th home run season. Keller also gives one up to Yohan Pozo, 3rd home run season. Chris Flexen gives one up to Mr. Nolan Gorman, his 8th home run season. For the Cubs, Drew Pomeranz served as the opener. 2 runs allowed, and he only got 1 out. His first earned runs given up all season long. Chris Flexen in a bulk roll gives up that home run in 3 2/3 innings. From there, Ryan Brazier, Caleb Theobar, Ryan Presley, all on a squirrel setting. Porter Aja squirrel setting, and Brad Keller 5 runs allowed in an inning after he had been so solid all season long. And for the Cubs, pair of bombs here, Carson Kelly, 11th home run season off of Steven Matz, and Matthew Liberatore gives one up to Michael Busch, 18th home run season. Liberatore gives up 2 runs in 5 innings. Bullpen from there was a bit shaky. Steven Matz, solo home run given up in 1 2/3 innings. Kyle Leahy gives up 2 runs in a third of an inning. Jojo Romero gives up an unearned run in his inning work, but Ryan Elsley closes the door, scoreless inning. That's able to get the job done for them. Also being able to get the job done, the Minnesota Twins, 6-5. They come back on the Tampa Bay Rays, as the Rays at one point looked like they had full control of this one. They were up by a count 5-1, and then, well, yeah, Cody Clemens happened. Cody Clemens, he's able to crank his 10th home run season off of Kevin Kelly for the Tampa Bay Rays. Taj Bradley gives up 3 runs in 5 2/3 innings. Kelly gives up that home run, 2 runs given up in a third of an inning. Mason Montgomery, Edwin Uceta, both on a scoreless inning, and Garrett Clevenger, he comes in the 9th inning, allows the RBI bunt to end the game by Brooks Lee. So that was a little bit rough for him, and for Garrett Clevenger, he does take the loss. You had for the Minnesota Twins a pair of scoreless innings out of Cole Sands and Nathan Kalum. Travis Adams making his MLB debut with 5 runs allowed over the course of 4 innings, but Griffin Jackson scoreless inning, and Yohan Duran scoreless 8th and 9th innings to be able to get the job done out there. Also being able to get the job done, the Baltimore Orioles, 9-6. They take down the Atlanta Braves. The Braves are now 10 games below 500. Just not happening for them this year. And the Orioles had been the top under team in the big leagues in road games, but this was very overwhelming, with Dean Kramer giving up 5 runs in 4 1/3 innings, including a pair of bombs. Matt Olson, 17th home run season. Austin Riley, his 13th. Aaron Bummer pretty much served as the opener in this game. He gives up 2 home runs, 3 runs in total in 2 1/3 innings. Says going deep off of him, you got Tyler O'Neill get his 3rd home run of the campaign, and then it was Jordan Westbrook, his 9th of the season. Colin Cowser from there off of the Dodd father, Dylan Dodd, his 8th home run of the campaign. Dodd gives up 2 runs in 2 2/3 innings. From there, Enyel De Los Santos, pair of outside the bullpen squirrels. Austin Cox gives up a run in 2/3 innings. Braulio Iglesias, he squirrels inning, and Desmil Hernandez, 1 2/3 innings. He allows nothing but Rafael Montero. In the 10th inning was Rafael Montero Bull, giving up 3 runs, 2 of which were earned in that inning. And for the Orioles bullpen, pretty solid effort here. Scott Blewett gives up a run in an inning, but Gregory Soto, a pair of outside the bullpen squirrels. Andrew Kittredge, Brian Baker, Felix Bautista, Yinir Cano, don't you know, all those guys were able to give you a scoreless inning. And for the Philadelphia Phillies, they were able to supply quite a few scoreless innings as well, as they take down the Cincinnati Reds just by a count of 5-1. As for the Reds, Nick Lodolo gives up 3 runs in 6 innings, including a pair of home runs. Kyle Schwarber was able to go deep a little bit later on off of Brett Suter, his 27th home run of the campaign, but you had Umando Sosa get his 3rd home run of the campaign. Alec Boehm is 8th, and for Suter gives up 2 runs, 1 of which was earned in his inning work. Graham Ashcraft, a scoreless inning, and you did have Mr. Will Benson go deep off of Ranger Suarez, his 7th home run of the campaign, but another great start out of Suarez. Not necessarily a ton of length here. Gives up 1 run in 5 innings, but Jordan Romano, Tanner Banks, Orion Kirkering, Matt Strahm, all these guys were able to lend a scoreless inning. Currently doing this as Tigers, Guardians, and Astros, Dodgers are in progress, so we'll clean those up on the podcast tomorrow. But if you're taking a look at trend-wise, what we're getting in Major League Baseball right now, it's been very much an underwhelming season, but we are starting to see some more overs coming through. Over the last 7 days, 45 overs and 43 unders, so that's a little bit over 50% with regards to that hit rate. Still a few games pending for Saturday, while favorites hitting at 60.2% in this time span, 53 and 35, and season to date, that favorite hit rate is about 58.1%, 765 and 552. Meanwhile, the over rate, that's more around about 47.3%, as we have seen 604 overs to 674 unders. So that's what we're seeing in baseball right now, and that's what we all got trend-wise. Coming up next, how about if we talk with our good friend Matt Josephs, aka Maybe Your Matt, on the prop front, and so much more right here on the Baseball Betting Show. Myself, Greg Peterson, now a part of the VSiN Family Podcast.
If your job at a healthcare facility includes disinfecting against viruses, you know prevention is the best medicine. And maintaining healthy spaces starts with a healthy cleaning routine. Grainger's world-class supply chain helps ensure you have the quality products you need when you need them. From disinfectants and cleaning supplies to personal protective equipment, so you can help deliver a clean bill of health. Call 1-800-GRANGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball, this is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
We're back in lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. Always great to be joined by this man, as we've got Matt Josephs, a.k.a. Mid-Major Matt, joining me. He does such an amazing job taking a look at this great game of baseball. He does so over at the Prop Queen website with Ariel Epstein. Coupled with that, I know that he is doing an absolutely amazing job taking a look at things over at ESPN Radio Richmond, doing the show Border to Border, as he's also getting set for the upcoming college sports season in terms of college basketball and college football. You're able to follow him on Twitter /X at Mid-Major Matt all together, and it's always a pleasure, my friend. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining me, Matt. And Matt, just how have you been taking a look at player props over the last few weeks? Because we're starting to see some higher scoring games out there in baseball, and I don't know if it's been just me, but I've been noticing that you either get 100 million billion runs in these games, or you get like a 3-2 game with really nothing in between.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the heat, because we know when there's a lot of heat and everything, you're starting to see a little bit more runs scored. And certainly, weird things start to happen as we get closer to the All-Star break, because, teams are ready for that break, and you have pitchers who are starting to hit, more innings than they've thrown in previous seasons or things like that. So weird things kind of happen towards the end of July, in the middle of July, and I think the heat is also contributing to it too.
Absolutely. And do you think that leads to a little bit more volatility with some of these teams that are able to get hot? Like we've seen the Miami Marlins, albeit not necessarily in the series against the Brewers, but they were able to catch a little bit of a hot streak towards the back half of the week last week into early this week. The Pittsburgh Pirates were able to do so as well, and I think that's been very interesting to watch those teams ascend, while a team like the San Francisco Giants has just fallen flat.
The Giants are always interesting because you look at their lineup, and there's good players in there, obviously. Bringing Devers over, there's some other guys who are pretty good, but it feels like it's a little older in certain spots, and so it's one of those things where you feel like, they get hot at the same time, they get cold at the same time. I mean, I watch the Phillies, and the Phillies are the same exact way. They seem to only score, 6 or 7 runs and then 1 run. So it's like one of those things where maybe the hitters are kind of getting their hotness and their coldness in terms of streakiness from everybody else in the lineup.
Yeah, I've been noticing that as well. Would you say that the New York Yankees are perhaps the same way as well? Because it really feels like they come and go with Aaron Judge, and right now this is a bunch that has been able to get back online with regards to their bats, but man, that pitching has really regressed.
It's a lineup that had that weird stretch in the middle of June where they couldn't score runs off of starting pitchers. They had 5 of 6 games where they didn't score a run off a starting pitcher. And in that 6th game, they only scored 1 run against Garrett Crochet. But once again, there's way too many good bats in that lineup. There's way too much talent for them to not succeed. But as you said, there's times where you have one thing, you have the hitting, but you don't have the pitching. And that's kind of where we are right now in terms of the Yankees, who I feel like this is a very important deadline for them to add, a pitcher or two and maybe another bat, because that division is getting a lot tighter than they probably thought it would have been a long time ago.
Yep, and obviously it's been really interesting to see what we've gotten in the AL East, as well as Mid-Major Matt, a.k.a. Matt Josephs, is joining me right here on the Baseball Betting Show. And I know you mentioned it, you watch the Phillies quite closely, but what do we make out of this division right now, where the Miami Marlins actually entered in the day on Saturday ahead of the Atlanta Braves in the standings, and it just feels like it might just not be happening for the Atlanta Braves this season?
Yeah, as somebody who was telling people to take the Braves to make the playoffs, I feel like I kind of have to get away from that. I mean, the Spencer Schwellenbach injury was huge, losing him for a long time. I mean, I think I read that it was 4 weeks without any pitching, and then after that, you still got to ramp him up. And if it's a lost season, why rush him back? But if you don't have Spencer Schwellenbach and you don't have Chris Sale, now Aaron Bummer was okay for the first couple of innings. Like, you're not going to rely on an Aaron Bummer. And now you're starting to see rumors that maybe Ronald Acuna Jr. is going to get traded at the deadline, which on the one hand, will get you a lot of prospects, but I definitely don't understand necessarily, unless you get overwhelmed with a trade, why you would want to trade such a talent if you're the Atlanta Braves. You know that Alex Anthopoulos will do some things, but will this team give him a reason to as we get closer to the deadline? Yeah, that's been really interesting to gauge, and it has been just rough for the Atlanta Braves in general, and they're going to be looking to atone for that on Sunday against the Orioles, as right now Grant Holmes is about a -165 to a -170 favorite against the Baltimore Orioles, and
even though there might be a little bit of upside value with the Atlanta Braves moving forward, I just still take a look at their money line prices on a day in, day out basis. They're continuing to be priced as if they're an above 500 team, and they just haven't played to that thus far, and I just can't be laying prices like that on them until I see a little bit of a spark.
Yeah, I would think this might be an over potentially, if anything, either that or maybe taking a look at their team total over. They obviously saw plenty of Rodgers when he was with the Marlins, and several guys have really good numbers against him. And, it figures to be hot probably out in Atlanta. And if we get a lineup with a lot of the starters, that might be a team total over for me because I think that Atlanta might score a bunch of runs. And look, if Holmes isn't going well, we know Atlanta's bullpen isn't necessarily the best, so maybe it's a game over as well.
Yep, that's a very good look. I'm taking a look at the over myself, especially within a 9, currently shaded down to the under. If we get really lucky, perhaps we get an 8.5 here. That's something that I could be signed up for. And a team that I've been signing up for a lot this year has been the Tampa Bay Rays. I've been very impressed by them, but I think that this one could be a little bit tricky for them going against Joe Ryan, who's been so rock solid for the Minnesota Twins. And this Twins bunch is about a -110 to a -120 favorite. That total is 8. How do you take a look at this matchup?
Yeah, Joe Ryan's interesting this year, especially at home. And you've got a Rays team that's making a lot more contact. They're averaging 4.3 strikeouts per game against right-handed starting pitchers. Been kind of flirting around that number, though, of what I'm guessing. Ryan's number is probably going to be 5.5 or 6.5. And if you look against a lot of righties, they haven't gone over that. Walker Buehler had 7, Charlie Morton had 7, and Michael Wacha had 9. But other than that, there's been some good numbers. So I'll be very interested to see what the strikeout number is for Joe Ryan. And then also, obviously, as we talk about on Sundays and occasionally Thursdays and, days where there's a lot of travel, you got to take a look at the lineup because certainly there could be some bench guys. Always have to be leery of the backup catcher, it feels like, because the backup catcher and every team, it feels like, is a strikeout machine. So that's something to certainly look at here. But if we get the right lineup and we get the right number, I might look at Joe Ryan's strikeout under because this Rays team is making a lot of contact against right-handed starting pitchers so far this season.
Looking at you, Austin Hedges of the Cleveland Guardians, and I'm so glad that you gave me that segue as Matt Josephs, aka Mid-Major Matt, joining me right here on the Baseball Betting Show as we've got Tarik Skubal has been so dominant for the Tigers going against Cleveland. -210 to -220 favorites are the Detroit Tigers with a total of 7.5. How do you take a look at both this and Tarik Skubal in terms of the American League Cy Young? Because a lot of places have them as a massive favorite, and I don't necessarily disagree, but I think that number has honestly gone a little bit too far because I've loved a guy in Hunter Brown that I feel like deserves a little bit more love than what he's gotten this year.
Well, and this sport's so interesting, and I guess in every sport, but you could have the overwhelming favorite, and I certainly don't want this to happen, but one injury and that race changes completely. I mean, I go back to the NBA season when McCain for the Sixers was the overwhelming favorite for Rookie of the Year. And of course, he gets hurt. And if you were betting behind him with some of the guys that you thought were maybe going to win the award, maybe you got some value there. So yeah, I wouldn't take Skubal in terms of the future there. I would maybe look at a Hunter Brown or somebody else like that. And then, if for some reason Skubal gets hurt, you're back in the ball game there. But with regards to this one, we all remember, I think the last time Skubal saw Cleveland, he had that complete game where he had 13 strikeouts in Detroit back in May. The Cleveland Guardians are a team you certainly want to play the over against when it comes to strikeouts. 16 overs, 6 unders, 5.58 strikeouts per game against left-handed starting pitchers. Now, the only thing is, and we've talked about this before in your podcast, you're going to pay a superstar tax. So I'm guessing his number will be a 7.5, maybe even an 8.5, heavily juiced to the under here. So if you are looking to take the over, just be prepared to either get a really bad number or have to pay a lot of juice.
Yep, and if you've been doing that with regards to Tarik Skubal, thus far it's worked out for you this season, but I do think that there might be a little bit of regression there, so I'm so glad that you mentioned that. And then this is the lowest total on the board, the Pirates and the Seattle Mariners. George Kirby against Paul Skeens, total is 6.5. Right now you're seeing the money line price on the Pirates right around about a -115, and want to get your thoughts here because with George Kirby, has performed much better than what that 4.80 ERA would indicate. He had a few rough starts coming off the injury list, and for Paul Skeens, he's been absolutely tremendous, but I fear that with Paul Skeens, he might go out there, throw 6 or 7 shutout innings and lose this game 1-0.
Yeah, this feels like when you see see him out there. This feels like a guy that you want to play the first 3 under. You want to play the first 5 under. You're right. This is what the beauty of baseball is. You may have 1 or 2 bad starts, and then it kind of skews your numbers for the rest of the season. And Kirby's been really good the first time through the order. He's only given up 6 runs the first time through the order. Teams are hitting 250 against him. So this could be one of those things where you potentially look at a first 3 under or a first 5 under because you want to isolate Skeens, and you certainly want to isolate Kirby, who's just as good the second time through the order. Teams hitting 250 against him the second time through the order. So this one screams first 3 or first 5 under. I know you're going to get a really low number here, probably a 2.5, maybe a 1.5 for the first 3. But you certainly want to isolate a Skeens that's gone up against the Seattle team, and very few people have numbers against him so far in his early career.
Yep, absolutely. And that's going to be one of the fun games that we're going to be taking a look at for this Sunday as well. And what do we make out of some of these teams that have really struggled at the plate? Like, we don't right now have a number up on the Rangers versus Padres. It's looking like it might be Kyle Hart for the San Diego Padres, and that's a little bit rough for them. But, they're a team that's really struggled. And then the Kansas City Royals had a nice little breakout on Friday. But, man, talk about a team that's been miserable at the plate. A total of 9.5, even with it being Anthony DeSclafani against Michael Lorenzen. I'd have my trepidations taking an over in that spot.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's so funny because as a guy who only kind of looks at the starting pitchers, I saw Anthony DeSclafani and I'm like, oh my goodness, he's coming back from an injury. But he's been in the bullpen for a couple of times. I think he's only made 4 appearances so far this season. So who knows how deep he's going to go. This feels like a Johnny Holstaff situation where basically Arizona, empties out the bullpen because Ryan Nelson went pretty deep on Saturday against this Kansas City team. And so, if you're looking at something that you might want to play, I don't think the books are going to offer it. But if you want to see a earned runs under for DeSclafani, this is a Royals team that has scored 8 against Rodriguez and they scored 5 against Hancock and 4 against Dustin May. But other than that, lately, it's been a lot of 0s, 1s, and 2s. So even if it's not on Sunday, going forward, you may want to look at taking some earned runs allowed unders against the Kansas City Royals until they start figuring things out a little bit.
Yep, I think that's a really good look from you as well, Matt. And is there anything else on the board that's really catching your attention for this Sunday as we've got all 3 teams in action? And we do have a few games that are currently off the board, but tons of intriguing games. And I know that one of your guys, Edward Cabrera, is going to be on the bump as well.
Oh, I do love Edward Cabrera. Even though he did get me, he faced the Twins. I had his K-prop under, and he went over it on the last batter, so that was a little bit of a tough loss. But I do love Edward Cabrera, and I think Edward Cabrera is going to pitch really well. And I think the Marlins, it's funny, we entered the season and we were like, okay, what's Sandy Alcantara going to get in terms of a trade for the Marlins? I think there's a chance they might trade Cabrera if they get a really nice package, which I think they could. He's got tremendous stuff. It's just one of those things where there's times where he just doesn't know where it's going. And going up against Brandon Woodruff, and once again, when you look at these guys coming off of the injury list, you want to make sure to look at the rehab starts. And he's had an interesting rehab because, he has this start on June 29th, but he only went 3 2/3 in that game. Didn't necessarily strike out a lot of guys. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean anything. Frankie Montas struck out a bunch of guys after he had some low K minor league rehab assignments, but that June 29 came after June 3rd. So he's been on and off in terms of going through his rehab. So I can only imagine that Woodruff's going to go 3, maybe 4 innings for Milwaukee, and Miami actually is a sneaky, decent contact team. They have 35 unders to 25 overs against right-handed starting pitchers. Now, the number is 4.96 in terms of the strikeout average against them, so I'll be fascinated to see what the books offer in terms of his strikeout number. My guess is a 3.5 or a 4.5, probably 3.5 over juiced over heavily and a 4.5 juiced under heavily. That'll be something I'll certainly be looking out for Sunday. And then other than that, when you kind of look at some of these other ones, obviously Max Fried has seen the Mets a lot because when he was a Brave, he saw them a lot. You want to see if Chase Burns can bounce back after his awful outing in Fenway. You're going up against a Phillies team that can certainly strike out a lot. Bryce Harper 0 for 4 on Saturday with 4 strikeouts. So if Burns can figure some things out, that strikeout number will be interesting. And of course, Zach Wheeler for the Phillies, who may get announced to be the starting pitcher potentially for the All-Star game. He goes up against Chase Burns. That could be, if you want to swallow it, potentially a first 3 under. But the problem is if Chase Burns gives up 19 runs, then that first 3 under is going to lose. So a lot of intriguing pitchers going on Sunday. It should be a really fun day, especially when it's hot on the East Coast and watch all the games. I guess I'll bring up one more. because the books have continually priced Jacob Lopez under on his strikeouts. Like, I'm continually getting 3.5, 4.5, some 5.5 even. Lopez has been tremendous for the Athletics. Now, granted, the other stuff, he's had some struggles with, but like, if I get another low strikeout prop, I mean, JP Sears just had 6 strikeouts against the A's, and JP Sears is not a strikeout pitcher. They're averaging over 5 strikeouts per game against left-handed starters, so I'm begging the books to give me another 4.5 because I'll definitely play that over with Lopez, who has shown he is a heavy strikeout pitcher.
Yep, absolutely. Jacob Lopez has been able to do a pretty tremendous job in terms of being able to get those strikeouts, and for a bunch that has been not having a lot of good pitching, the A's, they have been very much welcoming that, and we always welcome you aboard, Matt, as you do such an amazing job taking a look at this great game that we all know and love of baseball. Love to get people at home know it's all on tap for you and how people can follow along on social media and other platforms.
Yeah, admin Major Matt on Twitter. I post all my plays tracked by the Action Network app, so certainly nobody can have any sort of questions with regards to it. And, anybody who has any questions about first threes, first fives, anything like that, you can certainly check out my page and ask me the questions. We all want to do the same thing. We all want to beat the books. And as you mentioned in the beginning, getting close to college football, starting to do my research and the win total have been very good the last 5 years on my college football win totals. So look forward to that. And basically just, enjoying this great game of baseball, because there's a lot of good things still to come for this upcoming season.
Absolutely. And Matt, he is doing such an incredible job taking a look at this great game that we all know and love of baseball. And every single time he joins me, lends such great insight. So a big thanks to Matt for joining me on the Baseball Betting Show, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. And coming up next, it is that time of the podcast. I give you picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this Baseball Sunday as we touch them all.
If you work in quality control at a candy factory, you know strict safety regulations come with the job. It's why you partner with Grainger. Grainger helps you find the high quality and compliant products your business needs to inspect, detect, and help correct issues. And the sweetest part is, everyone gets a product that's as safe to eat as it is delicious. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball. This is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
And we're back here in lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. Always a pleasure to be joined by Matt Josephs, a.k.a. Major Matt. Does such an impressive job taking a look at this great game that we all know and love of baseball. Every single time he joins me, lends such great insights, and did so once again today. So a big thanks to Matt for joining me in the last segment. Now it is that time of the podcast. I give you picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this Baseball Sunday as we touch them all.
If a game is listed on the betting board, Greg has a side and a total on it, so it is time to touch them all.
Do note that as per usual, any changes are made to these plays will be listed up on my Twitter/X feed at gunit_81, and we're going to be going in Las Vegas rotation order. This is where we go with the National League games first, then the American League games, any interleague games. Those are going to be at the bottom. That'll keep things all nice, neat, clean, and easy. So how about if we do get things started with 9:51, 9:52 on the card. The Cincinnati Reds, they're on the road. They're facing off against the Philadelphia Phillies, and we are on to Cincinnati, who's on to Chase Burns getting the start for them. Zach Whelan and Dylan Wheeler goes for the Phillies. Phillies are in between -220 to -235 favorites, between +188 to +197. That number on the Reds, and total on this game's 8.5. Over is -120, and the under is even. Now Chase Burns is coming off of getting completely destroyed in his last start. First career road start, he gets lambasted by the Boston Red Sox as I make it out of the first inning. I do believe he's going to be able to bounce back. If you look at his minor league numbers, he was able to get north of 12 strikeouts per 9 innings, sub-2 ERA, was an absolutely dominant pitcher when he was over at Wake Forest, and that first start against the New York Yankees, yeah, he gave up 3 runs to the Yankees, but looked relatively solid there. So I don't think that last start is indicative of him. His numbers are very much warped by a small sample size. Now, for Zach Wheeler, since coming off the paternity list, 2 runs allowed in 5 starts. He has been able to generate 7+ strikeouts in each out of his 5 starts since coming off of the paternity list. He has been magnificent overall for the season, sub-230 ERA, getting north of 11 strikeouts per 9 innings. Facing off against the Reds team that has been a top 10 team with regards to runs per game, and now they're getting Austin Hayes back at the fold. And for the Reds, they're actually averaging more runs per game away from home rather than at home. But for Hayes, he's been able to give a home run every about 15 or so at bats. That's big because Elliot Ellie De La Cruz was the lone guy on the roster hitting for a double-figure amount of homers before he came back in. He's still relatively low with regards to his home run numbers overall because he missed so many games, but he and Eovaldi Marte, who's been a bit north of a 275, big-time gets for this team. You have Rhys Hines and Christian Encarnacion. Australian guys like this, they're not panning out, but plenty of guys move the line, like an Jose Trevino sitting at 285. Kevin Lux has been able to give you north of a 350 on base, and TJ Friedel has been really good at finding a way on base as well. He was out of the lineup yesterday. Should be all good to go here. And then for the Philadelphia Phillies, they are getting Bryce Harper back, who's been a little bit iffy with regards to power numbers, but it's still giving you north of 365 on base. Trey Turner down for what has been able to give you a double-figure amount of homers. He's hitting a 300. Nick Castellanos is starting to provide a little bit of more power. He and Alec Boehm, but it's hitting above a 275. So, like what these guys are bringing to the table, it has been a case where Kyle Schwarber has been your main source of power, nearly a 380 on base. He's been able to give the team north of 24 home runs thus far this season, but the big issue that you do have with the Philadelphia Phillies, this bullpen has been absolutely terrible. Right now, you've got a Ryan Kerkering give you a sub-3 ERA, and he's pretty much the only guy on the roster that's give you a sub-365 ERA. Guys like Matt Strahm, Jordan Romano, along with Joe Ross, Tanner Banks, they just have not been able to hold up their end of the bargain. Not to say that this Reds bullpen has been amazing. Emilio Pagan gives up a few too many homers, but his overall ERA has not been too bad. You've been able to have Tony Santillan give you a sub-350 ERA. Taylor Rogers, Brent Suter, these guys can hold down the fort. So I do think that the Reds should be a sizable underdog, but being able to get them at north of plus 180, I'm taking a shot here on Chase Burns, figuring that he's going to be all bounced back. But I think it's going to be a low-scoring game, so I might tell it at 8.2, like the under and the Reds on the money line. 953, 954 on the card. The Milwaukee Brewers are on the road facing off against the Miami Marlins. Edward Cabrera is on the bump for the Fish, and Brandon Woodruff goes for Milwaukee. Milwaukee's a minus 125 favorite, plus 105 to plus 113. That number on Miami. And your total on this game, it is 8. The over is minus 115, and the under is minus 105. Did semi-tell it at 8.4. I'm going to be liking the over. For Brandon Woodruff, this is his first start since the 2023 season on a big league mound, as he's made quite a few minor league rehab starts and everything like that, but he had his growth stunted, for lack of a better term, with regards to coming back to the big league level, because he took a comebacker, I believe, off the elbow. He was all good to go in early June, has made just one rehab start ever since June 3rd, and that was a start in which he went 3 2/3 innings, and he gave up 4 runs to the Jacksonville Jumbo Shrimp, so that's not necessarily great to say the least. And on the flip side, Edward Cabrera has actually been really good recently. 3 runs or fewer allowed in each out of his last 7 starts. He does give up quite a few walks, though. He's still at 3.8 walks per 9 innings, 341 ERA, 383 fielding dependent, and this is a Miami Marlins bullpen that has their issues. They are currently 22nd in the big leagues in terms of their bullpen ERAs. You've had Anthony Bender and Ronnie Enriquez actually be relatively solid pieces in this bullpen. Both of these guys have been able to give you a sub-3.5 ERA, but Calvin Fauché has been all sorts of shaky. He's right now posting up north of 4 ERA. AC Sunoco is on the injured list. Tyler Phillips is giving you north of 4 ERA. Lake McCarr's actually been recently pretty decent, but overall, it has been very shaky there. And for the Miami Marlins, just not a lot of power out of this team. They're outside the top 25 in terms of home runs on a per at-bat basis. Now, you do have Kyle Stowers, Augustin Ramirez, both give you 13-plus home runs, and plenty of guys moving the line. Xavier Edwards is sitting just below a 300, about a 355, 360 on base. Dave Myers has been hitting just below a 300. Liam Hicks is moving the line for this team, so you've been able to get some relatively good production there, but it is a case where just not being able to bring those guys home has been a little bit of an issue, but you've also got your issues with this Milwaukee Brewers bullpen as well. For the Brewers, they were banking on Yul Payamps, Elvis Figueroa towards the beginning part of the season. Both of those guys were big giant flops. So you've got Nick Mears, Trevor McGill, Abner Uribe, give you a sub-350 ERA. Rob Zanofsky has been able to do a solid job, but now he lands on the injury list as well. And for the Brewers, I don't know how sustainable north of 5.5 runs per game on the road is for them, because they're averaging 3.9 runs per game at home, 5.5 runs per game away from home, but they're doing a good job of finding a way on base. Bryce Terang, Christian Yelich, Jackson Trio, Sal Frelick, all with a double-figure amount of stolen bases, and someone like Reese Hoskins give you about a 335, 340 on base, double-figure amount of homers. Christian Yelich, 16-plus home runs thus far this season. Isaac Collins has done a nice job moving the line as well. So, they've been able to get some good production. William Contreras has been able to give you a nice on-base percentage as well. So, it's an interesting spot. I did set the Brewers out of minus 121. Even though Woodruff might not go deep in this game, I still have a lot of issues with regards to Miami Marlins and that bullpen. When it's all said and done, I think that we should be able to find a minus 120 on the Milwaukee Brewers, and I would be willing to side with them, and I do think that both of these teams are going to be yielding some runs. I did set my total at an 8.4, so here at the 8, I also like the over. 9:55, 9:56 on the betting board. The St. Louis Cardinals are on the road against the Chicago Cubs. Matthew Boyd goes for the Cubs. Eric Fetty Wap is on the bump for the St. Louis Cardinals. Now, this is a game that is presently off the board in terms of the run total because it is a Wrigley Field game that is all going to be based on the win. But right now for the Cubs, right around about a minus 195 to a minus 205 is that money line price. Between plus 160 to a plus 170 is that number on the Cardinals. Now, I was seeing an initial FanDuel opener on the total of 7.5 over at a minus 120 and the under at an even, and I would be willing to take a shot on the under. I set my total at 7.3. The wind is going to be very much blowing in for this game. It looks like it's going to be blowing in at right around about 10 miles per hour, and the hot temperatures that we've been seeing at Wrigley, they're going to continue. They're still going to be in the low 80s, but not quite the 90 degrees that we saw on Saturday, so things are starting to cool down a little bit there for Matthew Boyd. He has been very rock solid, by the way, for the Chicago Cubs. This guy has been able to really reduce on the walks. That was always a big thing that ailed him when he was with the Detroit Tigers for so many years. Right now, rocking a 2.65 ERA. That fielding independent is more in the neighborhood about a 3.46, so as he's only getting about 8 strikeouts per 9 innings, giving up only about 1 home run, 2 walks per 9 innings, and has allowed a combined 6 runs over the course of his last 5 starts. But the Cubs really did have to dive into their bullpen yesterday, and it's a bullpen that I feel like has just overperformed a little bit this season for the Cubs since May 1st. They've got a bullpen ERA that's more than 0.75 points lower than everyone else is in the league. Like, you take a look at the guys that threw yesterday. Ryan Brazier, Caleb Theobar, Brad Keller, Drew Pomeranz, Chris Flexen, all posting up a sub 189 ERA. Like, I understand that this is a good bullpen, and I understand that these guys are rock solid. That's not sustainable. So, I do think that we are going to see a little bit of something there. And then for the St. Louis Cardinals, you've got likes of a Phil Matone, Kyle Leahy, JoJo Romero, all being able to give you a sub 325 ERA. They had to dive quite a bit into their bullpen yesterday as well, with Matthew Liberatore not giving a lot of length. And for the Cardinals, this team is outside the top 22 in terms of home runs on a per at-bat basis. You've got a quartet of different guys that will be able to give you north of 10 home runs as far this season, but nobody that's really giving you north of 12. Wilson Contreras, he's been able to give you 12 bombs, about a 340 on base. Alec Burleson is giving you a 335 on base. He's up to 10 home runs. Lars Zupar, 10 plus home runs, but he's only at 225. Pedro Paz at the catcher spot. He's trying to take over for the injured Ivan Herrera. Hasn't been able to give you a whole heck of a lot. Brendan Donovan at the top, though, has been able to give you about a 370 on base. And Nolan Arenado has been in and out of the lineup and just has not been effective this year. Meanwhile, for the Cubs, this has been an incredible lineup as you've got a pair of guys in Seiya Suzuki, Pete Armstrong, both give you 22 plus home runs this season. Dansby Swanson has been able to give you 15 plus home runs. Carson Kelly is able to give you a 370 on base. Michael Busch is able to give you a 375 on base. And you've got a lot that is happening here. Ian Happ has been struggling with regards to his batting average, but still giving you a relatively good amount of power. I do think that this is just a little bit of a, shall we say, inflated line, though. I'm going to be willing to back Eric Fetty, who's been not necessarily getting a lot of swings and misses and everything like that, and he does need to cut down on those walks. 4 walks and 5.5 strikeouts per 9 innings, but he's only allowing 1 home run per 9. Now, he is coming off of 2 really rough starts against the Cubs and against the Pittsburgh Pirates. Gave up a combined 14 runs over the course of 8 2/3 innings, so that has been very much less than savory from him. If you look at what Fetty has been able to do on the road, though, that goes down to a 3.86 ERA, and on the road, he's giving up 0.8 home runs per 9 innings. I do think that getting north of a plus 160 on the Cardinals is pretty solid value. I set my price at a plus 162, so plus 163 or higher, willing to side with the Cardinals, and I did set my total at 7.3, so if we do get that 7.5 or higher, I'm going to be in on the under. 957, 958 on the card. The LA Angels hit the road. They're facing off against the Toronto Blue Jays. Kevin Gausman is on the bump for the Jays, and Tyler Anderson goes for the Angels. Angels to find themselves as between plus 149 to plus 156 underdogs. Between minus 173 to minus 182 is that number on Toronto. 9 is the total. Over is minus 115. The under is minus 105. Did set my total at a 9.3. I'm going to be willing to take a shot on the over. For Kevin Gausman, it's been a relatively rough season for him as he has given up 3 plus runs and now 8 out of his last 12 starts. But I do think that he's going to round into a little bit of better form. The swing and miss stuff has been a little bit down for him, but it's still not bad. 8.5 strikeouts at 2.6 walks per 9 innings. 4.18 ERA, but a 3.76 fielding independent. Last 2 starts have been much better, giving up a combined 2 earned runs over the course of 13 innings. Did have 4 walks in his last start against the Yankees, so that's a little bit cautionary, but if he can keep the ball in the yard, should be fine in this ordeal because it's an LA Angels team that is very top heavy and is very much boom or bust, because with the LA Angels, they're in the top 3 in the big leagues in terms of home runs on a per at-bat basis, bottom 4 in terms of on-base percentage. Joe Adell is really setting fire to the rain. 18 plus home runs. He's now hitting north of 250. So he's giving you a bit of something there. Nolan Schoenel has been able to give you 360 on base, but then you look at something like a Taylor Ward, 300 on base, 20 home runs. Jorge Soler is hitting at 203. Logan Hoppe, 17 plus home runs, but at 263 on base. Luis Renifo, no power, 268 on base. You just need more out of these guys in general. Even Mike Trout is only in that neighborhood about a 231 with his double-figure amount of bombs. And for the Blue Jays, this has been a bottom 8 team in terms of home runs on a per at-bat basis, but George Springer is starting to find it. 16 home runs at a 380 on base. Flagger Jr.'s give you a 380 on base. Bo Bichette is hitting at 270. Addison Barger, 270. So, these guys are finding a way to move the line, get on base, and that's the reason why the Blue Jays are right now leading the American League in terms of runs per game at home. They're getting 5.4 runs per game. It is a Blue Jays bullpen that has been solid. They've been hovering right around about 12th in the league in terms of their bullpen ERA. Braden Fisher, Brandon Little, Uriel Rodriguez have been able to give you a sub-3 ERA. You need to get more out of Jeff Hoffman, Chad Green. These guys have been big disappointments, but for the LA Angels, this is a bottom 4 team in the big leagues in terms of their bullpen ERA. Hunter Strickland has actually been able to give you some okay innings, but he's pretty much the only one in that bullpen that has thrown 10 plus innings this far this season that has been able to give you a sub-375 ERA. You've really got some guys that are struggling. Kenley Jansen, along with Hector Neris, Reed Detmers, Brock and Rolberg. It's been less than amazing for this team, and I do think that for our good friend and Tyler Anderson, the regression is going to continue. This guy had been getting lucky for so many years, and the underlying numbers were indicating it, and all of a sudden he's been getting got. As for Tyler Anderson, he enters having allowed at least 3 runs in 4 out of his last 7 starts, 4.12 ERA, 4.78 fielding dependent, 3.5 walks for 9 innings allowed, 1.5 home runs per 9 innings as well. He's been able to give you a little bit more swing and miss recently, 4+ punch-outs in each out of his last 5 starts, but this is a Blue Jays team that does a really good job of not striking out. I think that they get to him. I do think that the Blue Jays get the job done. Set my money line price at a minus 163 if you're going to be willing to lay a run half with them. Now, this is a FanDuel opener, so you're not going to be getting the world's greatest number here, but if you are looking to lay a run half as of right now on that, you're right now getting about a plus 110. If I could get closer to about a plus 120, I'd be willing to side there, but in some form or capacity, do see myself landing on the Blue Jays and set my total at 9.3, so at a 9, I'm in on the over. 959, 960 on the betting board. It is the Detroit Tigers, and they're going to be on the road against the Cleveland Guardians. Tariq Skubal is on the bump for the Tigres, and Gavin Williams goes for Cleveland. Cleveland does find themselves as a underdog of anywhere between plus 178 to a plus 190, anywhere between minus 210 to a minus 220 is that number. On Detroit, 7.5 is the total. Over is minus 120, and the under is even. And for Cleveland, I did set them on the money line at a plus 198. I was willing to go up to a minus 199 on the Tigers money line. Now, if you're looking to lay a run half with them, you're finding that at a minus 122, and I was willing to lay a minus 122 on that run line, so wouldn't want to go a hair past it, but I'm willing to lay that minus 122. As for Tariq Skubal, this guy has been absolutely masterful. Like, for him, he's just giving you a strikeout to walk ratio that is currently at 9.8. He's getting 11.4 strikeouts and 1.2 walks per 9 innings, allowing 0.7 home runs per 9, 2.15 ERA, 198 fielding independent. Recognize that he had a start a few starts ago against the A's where he did give up 4 runs, but other than that, he has been pretty much flawless since the middle of April. And on the flip side, you've got a guy in Gavin Williams that, well, he is not flawless because this is a man that is giving out quite a few walks right now. For Gavin Williams, the overall ERA is not the world's worst at a 3.86, but the fielding independent is more around a 4.77 as he's giving up 5.4 walks per 9 innings, 1.3 bombs per 9 as well. And for Gavin Williams, he has given up now 3+ runs in 3 out of his last 5 starts. For Gavin Williams, he's not even like he's backed up by the world's greatest bullpen anymore, as last year for the Cleveland Guardians, they were number 1 in the big leagues in terms of their bullpen ERA. This season, they have been more around about league average, as you've had Emmanuel Clase be able to round into form. He's giving you a sub-350 ERA now, and you've had Kate Smith be able to give you a sub-3 ERA. We'll see if Eric Zabrowski come off the injured list is going to be able to give them a bit more of something, but it has been a case where you've been having some rough outings from Hunter Gaddis has given you about a 3.5 ERA. They're just getting Paul Sewald off the injured list, who has not been effective really over the last few years. And for the Cleveland Guardians, the team is in the bottom 6 of the big leagues in terms of runs per game because they're just getting absolutely nothing out of this lineup outside of their main few guys. Stephen Kwan hitting just below 300, solid at moving the line. Jose Ramirez, 13 home runs, he's hitting just below 300 as well. Carlos Santana gets on base a little bit, but then you got the likes of Abo Naylor, Lane Thomas, even Kyle Manzardo throwing their guys like a David Fry, a lot of guys are hitting below a 225 for his team. And Manzardo does it for 13 home runs, but just not really doing a good job of finding a way on base. Meanwhile, for the Detroit Tigers, this is a top 7 team with regards to runs per game. Riley Green, Spencer Torkelson, Kerry Carpenter, all been able to give you at least 16 home runs. Now, Carpenter just landed on the injured list, but that means you're going to see a little bit more Cole Keith, who's been able to give you about a 330 on base. Juanzio Perez, since coming off the injured list, he's been able to hit north of 275. He's giving you a home run every about 17 or so at bats. Javi Baez has been hitting north of 275 along Gleyber Torres. Rock solid team there. And if you look at the Tigers' overall bullpen, they're about league average with regards to their ERA, but we've got a lot of guys that have been very, very rock solid for this team. And I do believe that this is going to be going downward as the season goes along. Tyler Holton has been a little bit rough recently, but Chase Lee, Will Vest, Bryant Herter have all been able to give you sub-3 ERAs. Tommy Canley right around about a 3 as well. I do think that for the Tigers, they get another dominant start out of Tariq Skubal, get the job done. Somebody told 7.4, so here at the 7.5, I like the under and the Tigers up to a minus 122 on that run line. 961, 962 on the card. The Rays are going to be on the road against the Minnesota Twins. Joe Ryan is on the bump for the Twins, and Drew Rasmussen goes for the Rays. The Rays are about even money to minus 102. You're getting between minus 108 to a minus 120 on the Minnesota Twins. 8 is the total. Over is minus 115, and the under is minus 105. Going to be willing to buy in on the Twins. I set them at a minus 124 for Joe Ryan. He does a good job of cutting down on the deep ball when he is at home. He gives up for his career about 1.6 home runs per 9 innings away from home, closer about 1.3 at home, and he's just had a nice year in general. 275 ERA, 326 fielding dependent, dead strikeouts of 1.8 walks per 9 innings, giving up only about a bomb per 9. He has given the team some really good starts with 2 runs or fewer allowed in 4 out of his last 5 starts. And for Drew Rasmussen, this is a guy that's as steady as they come, does not get as many strikeouts as Joe Ryan. He's only posting up about 7.5 strikeouts per 9 innings, but 2.2 walks, 0.9 home runs allowed per 9 innings. Got a bit roughed up in his last start against the Athletics, giving up 4 runs there, but all in all, guy's been able to do a nice job holding down the fort. And he's backed up by a bullpen that, if you look at the overall season numbers, they're right around average to slightly above average with regards to that ERA, but you still have so many guys that are able to go out there and give you good innings, as the likes of Eric Orze, Garrett Clevenger, Pete Fairbanks, Manuel Rodriguez. All these guys have been able to supply you with a sub-3 ERA. Kevin Kelly's been pretty solid in this bullpen as well, and all of a sudden the Rays are a top 8 team with regards to runs per game. Junior Caminero, Brandon Lau, a combined 40 home runs as far this season, with Lau now hitting about a 275. Jonathan Aranda's giving you darn near 400 on base. He's up to 10 home runs. Yandy Diaz over the last 40 days is hitting north of 350. This guy has been absolutely remarkable. Now, the bottom of the lineup, these guys like Cameron Misner, Taylor Walls, the entirety of the catcher spot, hitting below a 220. That's been a little bit of an issue, but I do think that they're going to be able to do a solid job here against Joe Ryan. But also for the Minnesota Twins, you've been able to get some good production out of Byron Buxton. Byron Buxton has been able to do a nice job supplying the boom for this team. 19 home runs, about a 335 on base. Ty Francis moving the line along with Trevor Larnach. These two guys hitting between about a 250 to 260. Brooks Lee has done a nice job finding a way on as well. And then Harrison Bader about a 330 on base. Willie Castro is finding a way on. Some of these bottom guys like Cody Clemens, Christian Vasquez, one of the backup catchers, guys like this have not necessarily been able to give you a ton. So it has been about a league average team with regards to runs per game. But I do think that they do enough to be able to get to Rasmussen here to be able to get the job done. I said I told it at 8.3, so here at the 8, I like the over, and I do like the Twins up to a minus 124 on that money line. 963, 964 on the card. It is the Baltimore Orioles. They're facing off against the Atlanta Braves. Grant Holmes is on the bump for the Braves. Trevor Rogers goes for Baltimore. Baltimore is a underdog between plus 140 to plus 148. Meanwhile, between minus 160 to a minus 172 is that number on Atlanta. 9 is the total. Under is minus 120. The over is even. If we can get to a plus 148, that'll be my buy point on the Baltimore Orioles. And if you're looking to lay a run half right now with the Atlanta Braves, you're just not getting enough of a plus price in my opinion. I need at least a plus 138. Right now that's a plus 134, so we'll see how that matriculates, but I'm just out on this Atlanta Braves team at this point. They have continued to be a bottom 10 team in the big leagues in terms of runs per game, and that's even with Ronald Acuna Jr. back at the fold, giving you 9 home runs, north of a 435 on base. He's been able to do his part. And you've had a nice long on base streak from Matt Olson, 16 home runs and a 360 on base entering into the day yesterday. But Ozzie Albies, Michael Harris continue to be albatrosses. They're both hitting below 225, not a lot of power. And Harris a 240 on base. Austin Riley about a 325 on base with 12 home runs, but Wells run dry with him. Sean Murphy is give you good power, 12 home runs, but he's only hitting a 225. Drake Baldwin has actually been really good at the catcher spot, 10 home runs, hitting a 275, but has been a very uneven and inconsistent lineup all season long. And I will say this for the Atlanta Braves, bullpen pitching has been a forte of theirs. Top 17 with regards to bullpen ERA ever since the beginning of the month of May. A lot of guys like Dylan Lee, the recently fresh off the injured list, Desbel Hernandez, Aaron Bummer, the opener from yesterday. All these guys have been able to give you a sub-3 ERA. Pierce Johnson has been pretty solid as well, so that does help you out quite a bit. And for Grant Holmes, he's been posting up about a 3.50 ERA. Fielding independence is a little bit higher than that. He gives up 1.3 home runs per 9 innings. The walks per 9 rate is north of 4, but he is getting 10.5 strikeouts per 9 innings, but he does sometimes knock himself out of starts a little bit too soon. Meanwhile, for the Baltimore Orioles, this has been a pretty putrid bullpen. They're currently in the bottom 8 in the big leagues in terms of their bullpen ERA. Felix Bautista has been really good in a closer's role. He's been able to give you a sub-3 ERA, but I mean, past that, it's been guys like a Cade Stout. You're looking at someone like a Yunier Cano, Scott Blewett. These guys have been posting up north of a 4 ERA. They need to come in and hold down the fort. They actually had Sir Anthony Dominguez give you a 3.15 ERA, so I mean, he's been solid for the team, but for the Baltimore Orioles, they themselves have been averaging fewer than 3.8 runs per game away from home, and you're going to need to get a little bit more pop out of this lineup. You do have 5 different guys that have been able to give you at least 10 home runs, but only one guy is giving you north of 11. That would be Cedric Mullins, 13 home runs, and he's only hitting a 215. You've been able to get about a 290 average, 375 on base out of Ryan O'Hearn, Gunnar Anderson, up to 10 home runs. He's hitting about a 280. So you've got guys that are able to find a way on, and now you're getting Colton Cowser along Jordan Westberg back after they were injured for much of the season. They've been rough when they've been out there, but I do think that they're going to be able to round and form a little bit more, and then you got yourself a bunch in the Atlanta Braves that just has not been able to get out of their own way all season long. So, circumstance where I did some, I'd sell that at 9.2. For Trevor Rogers, he was incredibly brutal at the minor league level, and I do think that there's going to be a bit of regression with our good friend and Mr. Rogers in his neighborhood, but I mean, he's been able to go out there and he's been able to give some good starts. 2.05 ERA through his first 4 starts. He's not getting a ton of strikeouts with about 7.5 strikeouts per 9 innings, but he's cut down on the deep ball. 22 innings across his 4 starts. He's allowed just 1 home run, and I do think that he's going to be able to land a pretty presentable start here. I do think that the Braves are going to start to be able to bust out a little bit more with their offense. So here at the 9, I'm going to be willing to take a shot on the over, but being able to get a plus 148 or higher, which I should be able to get when it's all said and done on the Orioles, going to be willing to take a shot on their money line. 965, 966 on the betting board. It is the Boston Red Sox on the road against the Washington Nationals. Garrett Crochet is on the bum for the Red Sox, and his old to be determined on the bum for the Washington Nationals. So this is a game that is presently off the board. It looks like Cade Cavalli is going to be getting the start for the Washington Nationals, and if he does indeed get the start, I set the Red Sox at a minus 194 on the money line. I'd be willing to go up to a minus 120 on the run line. So we need at least a plus 195 to take a shot on the Washington Nationals. And semi-total to wear an 8 or less. I'm looking at the over, 8.5 or higher, the under. If you do indeed get Cavalli, this will be his first start at the big league level since the 2022 season. Has underwent a few injuries, a little bit of just major surgery, what have you. And he was looking like a relatively solid prospect the last few years. But at the minor league level this year hasn't been amazing. 4.32 ERA, 9.5 strikeouts, to 4 walks per 9 innings. Maybe there's just something that I'm missing here, but this guy just doesn't seem like someone that's going to be able to go up there and get the job done for this Washington Nationals team. I recognize that there are people that are excited about his upside, but jeez. You got a Washington Nationals team that also backs him up with the worst bullpen in terms of ERA in the National League, as they just have found absolutely nothing whatsoever. Like Jose Ferrer, throw in there Mason Thompson, Eduardo Salazar, all these guys that are posting up north of 5 ERA. Jackson Rutledge, they've been absolutely terrible. Kyle Finnegan has been solid at the closer's role, and for the Washington Nationals, overall, it's been a relatively solid offense, but they average closer to about 3.8 to 3.9 runs per game at home, a full run per game more when they are away from home, as you've had only 2 guys at home thus far this season at north of 2 home runs. One of those guys is James Wood, who's giving you good wood, north of 370 on base. He's been able to give this team north of 22 home runs this far this season. You've had Josh Bell be able to give you a double-figure amount of bombs, but he's not hitting for any sort of average. He's hitting below 200. Nathaniel Lowe, he's been able to do a nice job of being able to hit on the road. Hasn't necessarily been able to have that translate to these games at home. 13 home runs. He's only hitting about a 230 as well. CJ Abrams, another one of these guys that has been able to hit the deep ball when he's been away from home, not so much at home. 12 home runs overall this far this season, but just 2 of them have come at home. So it's been very intriguing with this Washington Nationals team. Meanwhile, for the Boston Red Red Sox. They put up 9 runs in the first 3 innings against our good friend Mitchell Parker yesterday. And for the Boston Red Sox, it does feel like they're finding their bearings without Rafael Devers. It's been Wilder Abreu who's been wilding out, 17 plus home runs. He's now been able to give you well north of a 250 average. And then these mix and match guys, Abraham Toro, Rob Refsnyder, Rami Gonzalez, they're laying at least a 275. The young guys have had a little bit of a tough time finding it. Roman Anthony has been hitting below a 235, but his on-base percentage is up to a 344, so that's encouraging. Ceddanne Rafael is hitting about a 255. Jarren Duran has been inconsistent all season long, but Trevor Story all of a sudden hitting at 250 with a double-figure amount of homers. And for the Boston Red Sox, this has been a pretty solid bullpen. They do rank in the top 10 with regards to their bullpen ERA. Aroldis Chapman has been able to give you a sub-2 ERA. You got the likes of Greg Weiser, Justin Wilson, Justin Slayton, who have been able to give you a sub-375 ERA. Now, Slayton is landing on the injured list. That's not going to be impressive for them, and that means you might be seeing a little bit more Jordan Hicks, but I do think that for the Boston Red Sox, they do a nice job of being able to take it to this Washington Nationals team with Garrett Crochet being absolutely amazing at crocheting a whole bunch of strikeouts, as this is a guy that has been locking things down with a 234 ERA, feeling pennant more in the neighborhood about a 255, 1.2 strikeouts at 2.5 walks per 9 innings. I do think that he goes out there, completely dominates in this start. So 8 or less, looking at the over, 8.5 or higher, the under for the Red Sox. We'll only up to a minus 120 on that run line, plus 195 or higher, looking at the Nationals money line. 967, 968 on the card. The New York Yankees are on the road, facing off against the New York Metropolitans. Brandon Waddell is on the bump for the Mets, and Max Fried is on the bump for the Yankees. Right now, Waddell is not listed on the betting board, so this is a little bit of a TBD situation, and this is a game that is presently off the board, but I do have my handicap for the New York Yankees. I set them as a very sizable favorite here of a minus 186, so willing to go up to a minus 185 on that money line, or a minus 115 or better. We'll be looking at the run line, plus 187 or higher, looking at the Mets, and then semi-total to where an 8 or less. I'm in on the over, 8.5 or higher, the under. If you do get Waddell, he's been coming out of the Mets bullpen as a little bit of a long reliever thus far this season. You would have to think that that would be essentially a pseudo bullpen game for the team. I'm a little bit surprised that they're not giving Jose Buto a few more looks, as well as for Mr. Waddell. He last appeared on the 2nd of July. He threw 3 innings. He gave up 1 run, and overall has been solid in the bullpen. He's posting up a 2.55 ERA, but small sample size of 17 and 2/3 innings. Not getting a lot of strikeouts with only about 6 punch-outs per 9 innings, so that's something where you just take a look at things and you sort of toss up your hands. And for Jose Buto, who I think is going to be coming into this game, he's a long reliever that's been able to give you a sub-350 ERA. Oscar Zobin is able to give you multiple innings. He's been able to post up a sub-2 ERA. So all in all, it's a Mets bullpen that's been pretty solid. If you can get to the likes of an Edwin Diaz, he's been able to give you a sub-250 ERA as well. So do like what I'm seeing there. And then on the flip side, it is a New York Yankees bullpen that has been tumbling downward a little bit. Luke Weaver has just not been the same since coming off the injured list. They had to use up a little bit more of that bullpen than expected, with Carlos Rodon getting completely lit up in the first inning yesterday. But you do have Weaver along with Tim Hill, Yuri De Los Santos give you a sub-3.5 ERA. Ian Hamilton has been a little bit better recently, but Mark Leiter Jr. along Devin Williams, this has not been a great situation for them. North of a 4.5 ERA out of both of them. And for the New York Yankees, this continues to be a top 6 team with regards to runs per game on offense, but we have seen Paul Goldschmidt since the beginning of the month of June posting up a on-base percentage of less than a 250. Giancarlo Stanton's not really giving you a ton since coming out the injured list. It's been a case where you just have not been able to get anything out of Anthony Volpe as well. He's hitting less than a 225 this season. Cody Bellinger hitting about 250 with a double-figure amount of bombs. Trent Grisham, 15 home runs. He's been able to move the line, and Aaron Judge is Aaron Judge. He's right now giving this team north of 30 home runs. He's giving you north of a 455 on base, so you know what you're going to be able to expect there. But for the New York Mets, you do have a quartet of different guys with at least 15 home runs this far this season, as Juan Soto along Pete Alonso are giving you north of a 375 on base. Both of them able to give you 18 plus home runs. Now Francisco Lindor is dealing with a little bit of a lower body injury, but he's still been able to give you 15 plus home runs as well. And I do think that for the Mets, you're going to continue to get a little bit more production out of the bottom of the lineup. Brett Beatty, Mark Vientos, these guys hitting at 225 or lower have really been hurting the team. You haven't been able to get a ton out of Tyrone Taylor as well, so that's been a little bit fascinating. But that said, I do think that for the Mets, they're going to do a good job with regards to their bullpen. But again, Max Fried, the way that this guy's been able to perform, recognize that he's not like some sort of strikeout artist or anything like that. For Max Fried, overall for the season, a 2.13 ERA with only getting about 8.4 strikeouts per 9 innings, but 1.8 walks per 9 innings, 0.7 home runs per 9. I do think that he rounds it up for him, and he just continues to absolutely lock it down. He has given up 3 earned runs or fewer in all but 2 of his starts thus far this season, so 8 or less, looking at the over 8.5 or higher. The under, and for the Yankees, 1 to late to a minus 117 on that run line, plus 187 or higher. Looking at the bets on the money line, 969, 970 on the card. The Chicago White Sox are on the road. They're facing off against the Colorado Rockies. Chase Dollander is on the bump for the Rocks, and Shane Smith goes for the White Sox. White Sox are a favorite of between minus 115 to a minus 120, and for the Colorado Rockies, it's right around even money to plus 110 with a total of 11 over and under, both at minus 110. And with Chase Dollander and the Rockies, I did set them at a plus 126. So I'm going to be willing to side with the White Sox in what is going to be a relative toilet bowl game. For Chase Dollander, he just has not been able to pitch well at Coors Field all season long. And really for Dollander, it's been a rough season from 6.65 ERA. Getting 7 strikeouts to 4 walks per 9 innings, giving up 2.1 home runs per 9 innings, and he has taken form of a human pinata when he has been at Coors Field this far this season. At Coors Field, right now, his ERA is a 9.62. He is giving up right around about 2.7 home runs per 9 innings. Not great, to say the least, and Shane Smith has been getting banged around in his last few starts as well, but I do think that he's going to be able to round into a little bit of better form for Smith. He's been giving up a few more walks than I would like. He's been giving up 4 walks per 9 innings, 8.4 strikeouts per 9 innings, but 3.86 ERA, 3.87 fielding opponent. Going big, Colorado Rockies team that is about 19th in the big leagues in terms of runs per game at home, and Coors Field is supposed to be the ultimate cheat code for offense. Now, this is a bunch that's hitting about 40 points better when they are at home rather than when they're away from home, but still, you'd be expecting a lot more with regards to this offense at Coors Field. Hunter Goodman has been solid. He's been able to give you 16 home runs thus far this season, but only 5 of them have been at home. Ryan McMahon, 8 home runs, 358 on base when he is at home. Jordan Beck has been able to give you north of a 300 average at home, so that's been rock solid. But even someone like Etherio Estrada, 293 on base with 1 home run at home this far this season. Orlando Arcia has been pretty miserable for the team ever since they picked him up. He's been hitting like a 206. So, I mean, these guys that they were expecting to be able to bust out for the team have not been. Mickey Moniak, 7 home runs at home for the team thus far this season. So, that's pretty solid. And this is a Colorado Rockies unit that has been able to get some okay bullpen pitching. Like, I'm looking for anything nice I can say about them, and I've had the likes of Victor Vodnik, Jimmy Herget, Jake Bird. I'll be able to give you a sub-3 ERA. Seth Alverson has been pretty okay in this bullpen as well. And for the Chicago White Sox, it has been a pretty indifferent bullpen for them. It has been a case where you've been able to get a few guys who've been able to bust out. Like, you've had Steven Wilson be able to give you a sub-3 ERA. I actually like what I've seen out of Mike Vasil with Jonathan Cannon coming off of the injured list. He should be back in the bullpen in a long roll, so that'll help him out quite a bit. Tyler Gilbert as well, a sub-3.5 ERA, but then you do have the guys like a Grant Taylor, Wolfman Gonzalez, Brandon Iser, guys like this that have been posting up north of a 4.25 ERA. So it is an interesting circumstance, especially with the White Sox team that entered into the series averaging about 2.9 runs per game away from home. That is dead last in the big leagues. You've had Andrew Benintendi along with Miguel Vargas give you 10 home runs thus far this season. Lone 2 guys on the roster other than Luis Robert with north of 6 home runs, and Robert lands on the injury list. Not too much of a loss. He was sitting below the middle sign 200 anyway, and you just have a lot of guys in general that are absolutely not hitting for this team. Brooks Baldwin, Robert is on the injured list, Vinny Capra, Joshua Palacios, Michael A. Taylor, all these guys hitting a 218 or lower with no power whatsoever. So it is a very interesting circumstance, but I do believe that are going to be able to get a good start out of Smith, and Dollander has been miserable at home. But the White Sox have also been miserable at the plate. So, did semi total at a 10.7. I'm going to be looking at the under, and I do like the White Sox on the money line. 971, 972 on the card. The Pittsburgh Pirates hit the road. They're facing off against the Seattle Mariners. As it is George Kirby on the bump for Seattle. Paul Skeens goes for the Pirates. Pirates are in between minus 108 to minus 119 favorites. Between even money to minus 102 is that number on Seattle. 7 is the total. Massive juice on the under at a minus 125 over his plus 105. And I did set the Mariners at a minus 113. I do like them on the money line. I think that this is going to be a solid pitching matchup with a guy in George Kirby that overall for the season has a 4.85 ERA, but if you look at the fielding independent, it's significantly lower, and George Kirby was coming off the injured list, so his first few starts really warp his numbers. He has given up 2 earned runs or fewer in now 4 out of his last 5 starts, with the lone exception being when he started out there at Wrigley Field where it was 100 million degrees and the wind was blowing out. So very forgivable there. He's backed up by a bullpen that is is in the upper half of the big leagues in terms of their ERAs. For this Seattle Mariners team, you've got Matt Brash, Andres Munoz, Gabe Spire. I'll give you a sub 3 ERA. Carlos Vargas, Edward Pizarro, been able to give you a sub 3.35 ERA as well. So they've been able to do a pretty rock solid job on that front. And for the Pittsburgh Pirates, if you look since May 1st, this has been a top 9 team with regards to their bullpen ERA. David Benhart, Dennis Santana, Caleb Ferguson, they've all been able to give you sub 3.50 ERA. Chase Shogurt has been able to give you some nice innings as well. So these are guys that have been able to do a nice job of just rounding into form, be able to hold down the fort. And for Paul Skeens, this guy has been absolutely amazing. 5.8 hits allowed per 9 innings, 0.4 home runs allowed per 9 innings. Those both are number one with regards to qualifying National League starting pitchers, so he's been able to do a nice job there. 1.79 ERA on the road this far this season. Has yet to allow a home run in north of 60 innings away from home this far this season, and on the road he's getting about 10 strikeouts per 9 innings. So he's doing his part. The Pirates offense is on. The Pirates offense, 3.1 runs per game away from home. That is dead sinking last out there in the big leagues, and you just have no power in this offense. Like, I'm recording this before the July 5th games were played, but you've got 3 guys on the roster with north of 4 home runs. Andrew McCutchen, O'Neill Cruz, Brian Reynolds. Reynolds is giving you about a 300 on base, McCutchen about 350 on base, and then O'Neill Cruz is a part of a cavalcade of different guys that are just not moving the line for you, as he, along with Alexander Canario, Henry Davis, Jared Trollo, all these guys are at 222 or lower. You just have not been able to get anything whatsoever. I'd like some of Tommy Pham, who's sitting at about a 235 with 2 home runs. Like, it has been miserable for them. And for the Seattle Mariners, you do have big dumper Cal Raleigh, who's been absolutely magnificent for the team. Right now on pace for an American League record in terms of home runs in a season, 35 bombs entering into July 5th. And you got plenty of guys that are moving the line. He, along J.B. Crawford, both north of a 375 on base. When Luke Raley's been out there, as he's been dealing with injury, he's been able to give you about a 360 on base. Him being out has been rough, but you've got Roy Polanco, Rowdy Tellez, Julio Rodriguez, all between 11 and 12 home runs this season, and Randy Rosarena, 360 on base, 13 home runs. So I do like this offense of the Seattle Mariners. I do think that Skeens is able to outduel Kirby a little bit here, but that said, the overall, shall we say, whole of the Seattle Mariners, I think propels them to victory. Set a low total of a 6.4. This is a very pitcher-friendly ballpark. I think that runs are going to be at a premium. I like the under, and I do like Seattle on the money line. 973, 974 on the card. The Arizona Diamondbacks playoffs, the Kansas City Royals. Michael Lorenzen is on the bump for the Royals, and Anthony DeSclafani gets a start for Arizona. Arizona, a minus 122 to a minus 126 favorite, between plus 104 to plus 113. That number on the Royals. 9.5 is the total. Over and under, both at minus 110. I am not very in on Anthony DeSclafani, but I'm going to be willing to take a shot on the under. This is a Royals bunch that they were able to bust out with their offense on Friday, but still, they are dead sinking last in the big leagues in terms of runs per game. 3.36 runs per game, albeit they're scoring closer about 3.9 runs per game away from home. So they've been a little bit better with that regard, but still, this is a bunch that you're just needing to get a little bit more than just Bobby Witt Jr., Vinny Pasquantino. Pasquantino, 14 plus home runs. He's hitting north of a 265 for the team. Bobby Witt Jr., he's up to hitting about a 280 or so he's been able to do a solid job there. You do have Miguel Garcia hitting about 300 as well, but Salvador Perez having himself a miserable season. Single-digit amount of homers, 276 on base, and the young guys just have not been able to step up. Nick Lofton along Jack Caglione are both hitting below the Mendoza line of 200. I think it's Jake Rave who's hitting below at 200. I can't remember if it's Jake Rave or if it's a different first name, but the Rave has not been good for this team. And for Jonathan India, he's been able to give you about a 330 on base. He's been able to do a relatively okay job there, but I mean, it's a lineup that is about as offensive as Zen Flanders. But you do have a Royals bullpen that's been in the top 10 in the big leagues. You've got a 8th and 9th inning duo of Lucas Ursac, Carlos Aceves, both give you a sub 250 ERA. You've been able to get relatively good production as well out of more of these middle relievers like a Steven Cruz along with Daniel Lynch. They've been able to give you a sub 3 ERA. Jonathan Bolin has been in and out of the bullpen, but when he's been there, he's been solid along John Schreiber. And for the Diamondbacks, that is the main kryptonite of this team. They are currently a bottom 5 team in the big leagues in terms of bullpen ERA. Really, nobody outside of Shelby Miller has been consistent for this bullpen, and Shelby Miller has been very good, giving a sub 3 ERA. But past that, you've even now had Jalen Beeks start to act up a little bit more for this team, as the likes of Juan Barrio, Beeks, Ryan Thompson, Justin Martinez, who's been dealing with injury. All these guys are posting up north of 4 ERA. And for Anthony DeSclafani, he's been a long reliever for the team. 9 1/3 innings in his 4 appearances. He's been able to give you some swings and misses. He's got 9 strikeouts in the 9 1/3 innings, but he's also given up a pair of bombs. He's been having a little bit of a tough time with regards to command, and I just don't know what you're going to be able to get out of him, considering he's won either 2 or 3 innings in his 4 appearances thus far. That means that you're going to be based around the bullpen quite a bit, but not like Michael Lorenzen is necessarily knocking off your socks either. For Michael Lorenzen, it's been a little bit of a rough go for him this far this season, as right now he's posting up a 4.95 ERA. Fielding dependent is pretty much in line with that, as he's been getting about 7.5 strikeouts per 9 innings, giving up 1.7 home runs per 9 as well, and that's a face-off against an Arizona Diamondbacks team that is in the top 5 with regards to runs per game. And Eugenio Suarez, 27-plus home runs as far this season. They are banged up as Corbin Carroll is currently out of the fold, but Ketel Marte of the Marte Parte has been able to give you north of 400 on base. He's giving you home run every about 12.5 or so at bats. You're going to need to get a little bit more on some of these mix and match guys. Randall Grichuk has been hot and cold all season long, but that said, you also have Geraldo Perdomo's give you a 370 on base. Gabriel Moreno being on the injured list hurts them, but Lourdes Gurriel now is giving you 12 home runs. He's been able to about a 250 as well. So interesting circumstance. I did set the Diamondbacks at a minus 119. We're going to need to wait on a little bit of line move that I do think it's going to be there when it's all said and done. And if you're willing to lay a run off right now with the Diamondbacks, you're going to be finding that at a plus 155. If we could get that up to a plus 163 or so, we'll be looking there. So some from our capacity, most likely going to be playing the Diamondbacks, and semi-total 9.1 here at the 9.5. I like the under. 975, 976 on the betting board. The Houston Astros are on the road. They're facing off against the LA Dodgers, as we do know that it is going to be Emmett Sheehan who's going to be on the bump for the Dodgers. Right now it's to be determined for the Astros, so this game is off the board. It is appearing as though Colton Gordon will be getting the start for the Astros, and if he does indeed get the start, I would be setting the Astros at a plus 164. We need at least a plus 165 there. At a plus 119 or higher, we'll be looking at the Dodgers on the run line, and then I did set a total of a 9.6, a 9.5 or less. I'm going to be on the over, a 10 or higher to the under. For Colton Gordon, it's been a little bit of a struggle for him ever since he's come up to the big league level, as he's right now rocking a 4.37 ERA, feeling pending more around about a 4.39, 8.1 strikeouts and 1.4 walks per 9 innings. His command has been solid, but he's been giving up 1.8 home runs per 9 innings, so that's been a bit of an issue, as he has given up a grand total of 5 home runs over the course of his last 4 starts, and yet has only been tagged for a total of 8 earned runs, so do think that that's going to be trending northward a little bit. And then for Emmett Sheehan, he's been just banged up over the last few years. He was able to make some solid starts in 2023. This is going to be his second start at the big league level after he went 4 innings, gave up 1 run. That was a few weeks ago, so it's been sort of hot and cold, touch and go for him. And I mean, when he was at the minor league level, he was getting well north of 10 strikeouts per 9 innings, and in that first start in his 4 innings, he did get 6 strikeouts, so looked pretty solid there. But for the Dodgers, this is just a lot of bullpen use, and you have to figure that Sheehan probably not going to be giving you a ton of length. He had the Shohei Ohtani start yesterday, so he was unable to go deep into the game, and you've had Michael Kopech come off the injured list. He has yet to give up an earned run ever since then, but Ben Casparis, one of your main bulk guys, has been utilized as a starter. You've had a few guys be able to step up, do a solid job, like Jack Dreyer, Tanner Scott, Lou Trevino. These guys are giving you a sub 3.45 ERA. Anthony Manda, though, has been a little bit rough. Justin Robelski, you can utilize him as a little bit of a long guy. He's been able to give you about a 4 or so ERA, but and that's going to be a little bit of an interesting piggyback if you've got him. But what you've got for the LA Dodgers is a lineup that is just absolutely able to smash. Number 1 in the big leagues in terms of their overall run production. And they currently have, I believe, now 7 different guys who have been able to give you at least 10 home runs as far this season that are healthy. Because now you've got Max Muncy on the injured list. You would have 8 if Muncy was still out there on the field. But Will Smith, 12 home runs, 433 on base. He's getting jiggy with it. Andy Paz, Teoscar Hernandez combined 31 home runs. Paz hitting just below 300. Shohei Ohtani, 385 on base, 30 home runs. Like, just up and down the boulevard, it's pretty rock solid. And Mookie Betts hasn't even been great for this team. Mookie Betts has only been able to give you about a 325 or so on base, so you have to figure that he's going to be able to give you quite a bit more moving forward. And then on the flip side, you've got a Astros lineup that has been about league average with regards to runs per game, at the very least, that was entering into the series. And then they were able to win by 17 runs on Friday, so that helps them out. They are dealing with the injury to Jeremy Pena. Him being on the injured list hurts this team just as coach, but Jose Altuve is starting to look like the Jose Altuve of old. 15 home runs, north of a 330 on base. Need to get a little bit more on base out of Yenier Diaz, Christian Walker. Both of these guys a sub at 295 on base, but both have been able to give you 10 plus home runs. You've had Isaac Paredes give you those 18 bombs as far this season. Cam Cam Smith hitting a .290 as well. And for the Astros, they do have the better bullpen in this ordeal. They're a top 6 team with regards to their bullpen ERA. You've got the Bryans, Brian King, Brian Abreu, Bennett Sosa, Josh Hader, John Dubin. These guys have all been able to give you a sub 3.25 ERA. Stephen Okert has been pretty solid in this bullpen as well. So it's a very interesting circumstance. I did set the Dodgers where I'm willing to take a plus 120 or higher on that run line. Plus 165 or higher. Looking at the Astros money line, 9.5 or less, looking at the over 10 or higher. The under, 977, 978 on the card. The Walker Texas Rangers hit the road. They're facing off against the San Diego Padres. We do know that it's going to be one Mr. Jack Leiter is going to be on the bump for the Texas Rangers. As of right now, it is old TBD who is going to be on the bump for the San Diego Padres, so this game is off the board. I projected as if it was Kyle Hart. That was the projection that we were seeing on CBS Sports. And if we do get Hart against Leiter, I've set the Padres at a minus 128. We'll be willing to lay up to a minus 127 there. Plus 129 or higher. Looking at the Rangers. And then maybe I told to wear an 8.5 or less. I'm in on the over a 9 or higher to the under. If you do indeed get Kyle Hart, it's been a rough go of it for him. He's had to make some minor league starts because he just has not been effective at the big league level. He comes on over after he was able to have a successful stint in Asia last season. 6.66 ERA and at 6 starts. This will be his first start at the big league level since late May. Not really deceiving a lot of guys, giving up 2.8 home runs per 9 innings, but we'll be going up against a Texas Rangers team that has been in the bottom 6 in the big leagues in terms of their overall run production. You just haven't been able to get much out of these guys like Adolis Garcia, Marcus Semien, Jock Peterson is currently on the injured list. Jake Berger only at 240 or lower, not necessarily giving you a ton of power. Wyatt Langford has been your best home run hitter at 13 bombs. He's currently on the injured list. Corey Seagerson's coming off the injured list, hitting right around about at 200. He's been an issue for the team as well. So you've got just a lineup in general that's not been able to supply. Josh Smith is giving you north of 270 batting average, so that's good. But also for the Rangers, ever since May 1st, this has been a top 5 team with regards to their bullpen ERAs. You've had likes of Robert Garcia, Chris Martin, Luke Jackson, all be able to give you sub 350 ERA. You've been able to get good production on some of these long guys like a Jacob Latz as well. And when it comes to the San Diego Padres, it's been a pedestrian offense of their own. They're in the bottom half of the big leagues in terms of runs per game, though you do have a trio of guys who have been able to supply 13 plus home runs for you and Gavin Sheets, Manny Machado, along for Tatis Jr. Tatis Jr. and Machado both give you north of 350 on base. Jackson Merrill's moving the line, ending about at 285, but we've seen he and Jay Cronenworth really regress there. The catcher spot has been a big issue. You don't have a single catcher on this roster hitting above a 215, and the, shall we say, last outfield spot that was supposed to be held by Jason Hayward, it's been a, shall we say, a timeshare between the likes of Brandon Lockridge, Oscar Gonzalez and company, and just haven't been able to get anything out of those guys either. So it is a very interesting circumstance because Leiter is only getting about 7.5 strikeouts and 4 walks per 9 innings. He's been allowing a little bit more than a home run per 9 innings, so he has not necessarily been effective himself. I do think that Leiter and Art both give up a few runs, so this is a circumstance where I set mine at a minus 128, minus 127 or better. Looking at the Padres plus 129 or higher. Looking at the Rangers, and then in half or less like the over 9 or higher, the under. And we wrap things up with 979, 980 on the card. The Giants are on the road against the Athletics as it is Jacob Lopez on the bump for the Athletics. And for the Giants, it is Hayden Birdsong taking the bump for them. And for the Giants, you're going to be finding them as very, very slim underdogs, right around about even money to minus 105, between minus 108 to minus 115. That number on the Athletics, 10 is the total. The over is minus 120, and the under is even. Willing to go over on a 10. I set my total at 10.3. If this goes to 10.5, I would be taking a look at the under, and I actually would rather have a 10.5 under rather than a 10 over. I recognize the dangerous game that I'm playing and taking an under in Sacramento, but with the San Francisco Giants, it has been a little bit of a rough offense with Matt Chapman along with Casey Schmidt being on the injured list. These two guys were very rock solid in that infield, and when it comes to the San Francisco Giants team, they're just not getting a lot right now out of Rafael Devers. Ever since he got traded to the Giants, say sub 225 batting average, only 2 home runs for the team. You've had Jungle Lee really regress as well. For Lee this far this season, he's only been able to about a 244, got off to a nice start to the season, has been really regressing over the last few weeks. Wilmer Flores has only gave you about a 315 on base. He's had 11 home runs, but he's been stuck there for quite a while. Eloy Ramos, 13 bombs, 350 on base. That's pretty rock solid, but these guys at the bottom of the lineup, Patrick Bailey, Tyler Fitzgerald, hitting at 225 or lower. Christian Koss has actually been able to give you a bit of something in terms of hitting at 265, but not really a lot of power there. That's been an issue. When it's not been an issue has been the Giants pitching. Currently number 1 in the big leagues in terms of bullpen ERA. Recognize it's been a little bit more shaky here over the last 2 to 3 weeks, but likes of Camilo Duvall, Eric Miller, Randy Rodriguez, Tyler Rogers have all been able to give you a sub-3.15 ERA. And when it comes to Spencer Bivens, he's been a pretty solid long guy, give you about a 3.25 ERA as well. And then for Hayden Birdsong, he was a part of the bullpen towards the beginning part of the season, getting good swing and miss stuff. 9.2 strikeouts per 9 innings. Really, the issue has been the deep ball, giving up about 1.3 home runs per 9 innings, 4.30 ERA. Fielding dependent, that's pretty much in line with that, as he is giving up 4 walks per 9 innings, and it's just in a funk in general. 3+ runs allowed in each out of his last 4 starts, and for the Athletics, this is a lineup that has been able to do a nice job of being able to crank a yard. Tyler Soderstrom and Brent Rooker have both been able to give you a combined 31 home runs this far this season. You've had Jacob Olsen hitting at 337. It's just absolutely remarkable what we're seeing there. Even with Miguel Andujar on the injury list, you've had Shea Langoliers step up, give you 12 home runs. He's hitting for about a 245. You've had some good production as well out of Lawrence Butler, give you a 320 on base. Double-figure amount of stolen bases for the team. Now, where the Athletics really go wrong, this bullpen has been terrible. They're currently dead last in the big leagues in terms of bullpen ERA. Really, other than Sean Newcomb, who they picked up mid-season, nobody else in this bullpen is currently giving an ERA that is below a 4. Even these guys like Justin Cerner, Hogan Harris, Grant Holman, they've been having a miserable year. Mason Miller, a 4.55 ERA, despite getting nearly 15 strikeouts per 9 innings. And Jacob Lopez, really good swing and miss stuff. 11 strikeouts per 9 innings. Walks are a bit of an issue. He's giving up about 3.5 walks per 9 innings, about 1.3 to 1.4 home runs per 9 as well. But he needs to be able to do a nice job locking into form, as he has given up 3 earned runs or fewer in each out of his last 5 starts. Sometimes length can be a little bit of an issue with him because of the amount of walks that he gives up. But overall, I do think that Lopez is going to be able to give you a good start. But I do think that Giants bullpen does win out here. I said I told 10.3. I am starting to see 10.5s pop up. Personally, I would rather take a 10.5 under rather than a 10 over. So looking at that 10.5 under, and for the Giants, I'm going to be willing to lay up to a -116 on that money line. And that'll wrap things up for the Sunday edition of the Baseball Betting Show, now part of the VSiN family of podcasts. A big thanks to one of our good friends in Mr. Matt Joseph, aka Mid-Major Matt, for joining me in the last segment. If you do like hearing from this fine podcast, Baseball Betting Show, you're able to subscribe wherever your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, and TuneIn. If you have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you do have one of 2 ways to be able to throw those in. First one is my Twitter/X timeline at gunit_81. Keep in mind, letters EM, they mean does not matter. So per usual, please do send these into the timeline. The other way is find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it is very much appreciated. From there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like here on this podcast by that 5-star review. And I'm coming at you guys every single day throughout the baseball season, which means I'm back with you once again tomorrow. Thank you.